Hello everybody, Mobius Y here with another video for Stellaris Console Edition. Today's video is going to be discussing one of the core mechanics of the game, and this video's topic will be about trade and piracy, which are some of the new mechanics that were introduced in version 2.2. So before continuing with the video, if you'd like to see more Stellaris Console Edition content, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon to be notified when I upload a new video. Normally I upload at least once per week as per my stream schedule, but sometimes I'll do it more often than that. Now these newer mechanics videos will be somewhat unscripted, unlike the previous videos, so they'll probably be a bit longer, but I still intend to cover the topic in great detail, and I'm hoping by the end of this video that you will all have learned something. So let's get on to the subject at hand, starting with trade value. Now trade value is indicated by the little blue ring icon, You can see some here in Oshimir, for example, and some here in Karanis. There's a little blue ring with a 2, and over here there's a little blue ring with an 8. That indicates trade value. Now, unlike other resources in the game, trade value is automatically collected by upgraded star bases. So, for example, in the Follow Me on Twitter system, we have an upgraded star base, and it is in fact collecting the trade value here in this system. There's 108 over there on one of my planets, and there's another 3 over here on an uninhabited planet. However, only upgraded star bases will collect this trade value. So for example, over here in Casmathon, we have a basic outpost, and it is not collecting this trade value here from this planet. So you need to upgrade your star bases if you want them to collect their trade value. Now star bases can be built and upgraded with the trade hub building to further enhance their collection of trade value. This simply makes them more efficient. You can see on the right hand side there, it gives a modifier where the collection range is increased by +1. Now the collection range for each value that is increased when you construct a trade hub, that is simply an additional hyperlane jump from that upgraded starbase that it will in fact collect trades. So if we upgraded this starbase here in Casmathon and gave it 2 trade hubs, it would also be collecting any trade value that were 2 hyper jumps away. For example, 1, 2 if there was any trade value here, 1, 2 if there was any trade value there, 1, 2. The trade value here in StarMag would be collected by it. And then also over here, 1, 2 in the post a comment system, the 72 trade value on one of my colonies would be getting collected by this starbase. So you can upgrade a starbase to have all of these 6 of these modules have trade hubs, and make it so that that single starbase is collecting all trade value up to 6 hyperlane jumps away. So we're going to go ahead and do that in order to examine where you want to upgrade these star bases and have them turned into major trade hubs. You want to take a look at your trade routes. And in order to look at that, you need to go to the UI on the left, go to the very bottom to map modes, and the very top one is called the trade routes map mode. When you select it, a lot of these hyperlane jumps will get these blue arrows on them, and essentially what that shows is the routes that trade value is being collected and sent back to your home world. All trade value is collected from your upgraded star bases, which is where these blue lines originate from. For example, here in the Lando system and here in the Pila system, I have upgraded star bases, and any trade value they're collecting is sent along these routes indicated by the blue arrows, and they go all the way back to what your trade capital is, which is almost always your home system. So any trade value being collected throughout your empire can be seen in this trade routes map mode. So if we were to upgrade a starbase and max it out with 6 trade hub buildings, it would be able to collect trade from up to 6 systems away. So a good place to start with is systems on the very edge of your empire. For example, here in the Keswatov and the Abasha Min systems, these are on the very edge of our empire because they do not have any more hyperlane jumps extending outwards from them. So if we were to upgrade a starbase and give it trade hubs, we'd want to put it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hyperlane jumps away. So here in either Aphramike or in the Silage systems would be good choices to put a trade hub starbase, because with 6 trade hub buildings, they would be collecting the trade value in these 2 systems, as well as any trade value off in other directions. In any direction that is 6 hyperlane jumps away, it would be collecting the trade value from those from those locations. So some good places to check where we could build some trade hubs would probably be here in the silage system, as I mentioned earlier, and then we'll want to put another trade hub about 6 hyperlane jumps further along, closer towards our home system, I would wager. There's some trade value over in this direction that's also not being collected. So, for example, up here we could put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We could put a trade hub here in a shipso, and that would be collecting trade off in this direction as well. So we've got several options to put some trade hubs. Another good one would be here in the Sahuaturn system, because that would be able to collect the trade hub all the way up here in the Turbox system, I believe that's called. 3, 4, 5, 6. It's exactly 6 hyperlane jumps away. So those are some good locations to upgrade some star bases and put a whole bunch of trade hubs on them. And then, of course, further along the trade route back to our home system, for example, here in Conviab, that'd be another good system to put another trade hub. So we're actually going to jump ahead where I upgrade a bunch of star bases and put a whole bunch of trade hubs on them, and you'll see that we have new trade routes, as well as the trade value in a lot of these systems that is currently not being collected will be getting collected by those newly upgraded star bases. Okay, so we've jumped ahead several years here, and you can see at the bottom I have a bunch of completed starbase construction queues. Now if we go over to the outliner on the right side, under the star bases section, if you have upgraded a starbase to have a whole bunch of trade hub buildings, it will be labeled as a trade hub starbase. For example, here in the Conviab, the station there has 6 trade hubs. So it's classified as a trade hub. So we built one here in Conviab, we built one here in the Spooky Horizon Hole, we built one over here in Sahuaturn, we built one over here in Samnivik, one over here in Silage, as I discussed earlier, and one over here in Shipso, as I also discussed earlier. So if we take a look around our empire, all of the trade value in our empire systems is now being collected, because we have 6 new star bases that were upgraded with 6 trade hubs each, and their trade collection is big enough to extend to every system in our empire that had trade value, and it's all being collected. So if we take a look in the trade routes map mode, yet again, you can see that we have a bunch of new trade routes. We have one coming all the way from here in Siege. Even though it's collecting all the way out from here, the trade route doesn't start until there's an upgraded starbase that is collecting trade. So it comes from Siege, and then it moves all the way down towards Samnivik, where we have another trade hub, as a matter of fact. Then it continues on past Ascension's End and goes to the Spooky Horizon Hole, where we have another trade hub starbase, and then it carries on 2 more jumps to our home system in main playlist. Now, some other things that you may see when you are in the trade routes map mode is some systems that have these various icons over top of them. Most of the time they'll be kind of grayed out, but you can select a particular starbase by moving your cursor over this blue icon next to the name, and if you press the button, you'll see that the trade route shows that single starbase's exact trade route all the way back to your trade capital, which is usually your home world. And the other symbols that are over top of the nearby star systems have also changed as well. You'll see that the little blue box with the arrow pointing into it, that indicates that these systems have trade value that is being collected from the starbase we have selected in particular. So these systems all the way out here are being collected from the Silage starbase. This system over here is being collected from it, and that is as far as it goes. We can go over here to a Shipso and select that one, and you'll see that the icon changes on some nearby systems. So Uswaria, Japris, which were not being collected by Silage, for example, and these systems up here are being collected by the Shipso Trade Hub station. And we can do the same thing with the Trade Hub over here in Sequitern. You can see that all these systems now have that blue box and arrow icon lit up, indicating that they are being collected from. Now, another symbol, let me just back up for a second. Another symbol that you'll notice in this Trade Hub screen is this little kind of skull and crossbones icon. Most of the time it's gray, but in these instances, for example, these 3 systems, it's a deep red, and there's another system up here where it was deep red as well, here in the ISOM system. That indicates piracy. When it's grayed out, there are some levels of piracy in that system. However, when that symbol is red, then there is a serious issue of piracy in that system. Now, piracy directly steals from your trade value along your trade routes that is being sent back to your homeworld. So, for example, if the Sehuaturn system was collecting, say, 100 trade value and sending it along this trade route back to the home system where there's all this piracy, depending on how much this piracy is, they would be stealing that much trade value from this trade route. So you want to take care of that by suppressing the piracy, because if you leave the piracy unchecked when it's high enough and you leave it unchecked for a long time, it will eventually spawn a pirate fleet, and they'll do things such as attacking your other mining stations and whatnot. So you need to create trade protection and piracy suppression. The easiest way to suppress piracy is to have your military fleets flying around in the systems. If you move your cursor over a military fleet in the outliner, you'll see that underneath its fleet size is another statistic labeled piracy suppression, and it tells you how much piracy is being suppressed by this fleet. So this means that whenever this particular fleet is in a system that is particularly along a trade route, for example, it is suppressing piracy by that much, but it's only when it's in that system. So despite having this particular fleet patrolling along these systems where in fact we do have a fair deal of piracy in these areas, as soon as they leave, the piracy will actually jump back up because there's no more piracy suppression in those systems. So in order to passively control piracy, you want to create trade protection. And you can do this by Bastion-style star bases. So some of my other star bases, as you can see here, they're labeled as a Bastion class. For example, the one here in Sim is a Bastion, and that's because it is equipped with a bunch of defensive buildings like hangar bays or missile batteries or gun batteries, and it has a lot of defense platforms as well. These buildings actually create trade protection from this particular starbase, and they also increase its protection range. So gun batteries, missile batteries, and hangar bays, similar to the collection range from the trade hub, this increases a starbase's protection range by +1. So for every one of these modules that you have on your starbase, its protection range is increased by an additional 1. And it's just like the collection range. For each protection range that is increased by 1, that is how many hyper jumps away from that starbase that it is generating trade protection. Now, when you're upgrading starbases strictly to generate trade protection, I highly recommend going with the hangar bay modules, because they generate more trade protection than the gun batteries and missile batteries. Gun and missile batteries have only generate +5 trade protection, whereas a hangar bay generates +10. They all increase its protection range, but the hangar bay generates more trade protection. Now, because I already have these star bases on the edges of my empire generating trade protection, some systems already have some trade protection in them, but it is not enough because they simply cannot extend their trade protection far enough deep within the core areas of my empire. So we want to create some additional trade protection, particularly along the routes where we saw lots of piracy. So along this road here, there's some piracy. We got some piracy up here around Casmathon and Isam, for example, where it's actually severe with the red icon. And then in particular along this route here, where these three systems appear to have severe amounts of piracy. So we're probably going to want to upgrade a starbase here in Iastars and here in Latirin, as well as maybe one over here in Ascension's End to create some trade protection up in this area, and then perhaps one more up here in Aphramike to create some trade protection up in this area as well, and then we'll have to find a system up here in the top as well to upgrade a starbase and give it some trade protection. So we're going to jump ahead even further to where I've upgraded a bunch of starbases in some strategic locations to create a lot of trade protection. Okay, so we've jumped ahead several more years, and you can see at the bottom I've completed a bunch of spaceport construction queues. So I have constructed some additional hangar bays by upgrading the star bases here in Aphramike, as I mentioned, the one here in Casmathon, Ascension's End, Iastars, and Latirin. And if you take a look, we can see that I've outfitted all of them with 6 hangar bays to maximize their trade protection being generated and their protection range. And if we take a look at the trade routes map mode, the piracy in some areas hasn't been completely eradicated. There's still some around this particular area down here, and there should probably be some over around here by the homeworld as well. But for the most part, it has been severely reduced, and even here in the ISAM system, it's no longer a red icon. So you can further better the trade protection by having your fleets patrol the area, or upgrading more star bases with hangar bays or gun batteries and missile batteries to increase surrounding trade protection. And in fact, there is also a tradition in the diplomacy tree called secure shipping. It's the one in the middle on the bottom side there. It increases trade protection on trade routes by an additional 5 points. So those are various ways to passively increase trade protection to try and reduce piracy so that you're maximizing the amount of trade value that is being brought in from your various star bases. Now remember that overlapping your collection range is entirely possible, and it's not bad. You can totally do that. It's just a little inefficient, so you want to try and maximize the placement of your star bases so that their collection range stretches out over your entire empire with as little overlap as possible, so that you don't have to construct as many star bases to make sure that the collection range extends out everywhere. However, overlapping trade protection and or piracy suppression, that's not really something to worry about, as it just further reduces the odds that you'll have piracy in those systems. So it's not really something you need to concern yourself with. Now, what exactly does trade value do? It starts its long journey from being collected by a nearby starbase, which is all the way up along here in Silage, and then it gets sent along the trade road down here to Chasmathon, over here to Ascension's End and the Spooky Horizon Hole, and eventually makes its way all the way back to the homeworld. Well, what happens with it once it gets there? Well, simply put, trade value is used to be converted into other resources that your empire needs. It's not like minerals or energy where it's simply produced and generated and is just something else you have to keep track of. Trade value is directly converted into other resources. And if you go to your policies screen, I picked the wrong one, you can specifically look at what's called the trade policy. Now, there's 3 types of trade policy that you can choose from. The default one is called wealth creation, and this converts all points of trade value into energy credits. For each point of trade value that you are collecting and sending back to the homeworld, you are generating 1 point. You are generating a single energy credit. So if you were generating or collecting 100 total points of trade value, and that much was being sent back to your homeworld, it would add plus 100 energy credits to your monthly energy credits. The second option is consumer benefits, and this converts some trade value into both energy credits and consumer goods. For each point of trade value that you are collecting and sending back to the homeworld, it's generating 0.5 energy credits and 0.25 consumer goods each month. So if you had 100 trade value being collected and sent to your homeworld, it would be generating 50 points of energy credits each month and 25 consumer goods each month. Now the last one, this is my personal favorite. This is called the Marketplace of Ideas, and this converts each point of trade value into 0.5 energy credits and 0.15 value of Unity. So if you want to increase your Unity production, you can select the Marketplace of Ideas, especially if you are going with a Unity-focused build. So if you had 100 points of trade value being collected and sent back to your homeworld, this would be generating an additional 50 energy credits and 15 points of Unity each month. So this is a really good option. It's kind of my default go-to because I like maximizing Unity output to get those traditions adopted and online as quickly as possible. If you're suffering from a lack of consumer goods, you can change your trade value, your trade policy to consumer benefits instead to try to stabilize your generation of consumer goods. Or if you really want to crank out some more energy credits, or you want to have your trade goods all completely converted to energy credits to kind of stabilize your economy, you can go with the wealth creation, which is the default option at the start of the game. So that is essentially what trade value does for you, and this should sum it up for this video. So to recap, we've covered trade value, trade routes, piracy, and trade protection. I hope this video has been helpful for some new and old players alike concerning this new mechanic that came with the version 2.2 update. So if you'd enjoy seeing more videos such as this one, please subscribe to the channel, as there will be additional mechanics videos in the future. And don't forget to check out the links in the description below, such as my Twitch channel. I stream Stellaris Console at least once a week there, and I can interact with viewers live while playing. We can have conversations and you can ask questions, and I can try to show them and answer them in the game whilst streaming. You'll also find a link to my Twitter feed, which is a great way to keep in touch with me, and I'll post important announcements there. And lastly, you'll find an invite to my own personal Discord for fans of my channel to freely join. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. This is Mobius signing off for now, and I hope to see you all again real soon.